right, so I will call the Southborough School Committee open meeting of Wednesday, March 11th, 2020 to order. And we'll start with audience sharing. First item on the agenda. Anybody have anything to share?
So I actually was going to have Mary Ellen Duggan,
Got a new name.
our wellness coordinator, just give an update on the COVID virus.
Great.
And our response and what we're doing as a district.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Ellen, for those of you that don't know me. As you all have gotten all the emails from Greg and myself and Dr. Medina, we are keeping on top of all of the COVID virus, all of the updates that come through DPH. Mr. Lavoie actually was on a conference call this afternoon, and there really is no new news from that conference call. It was more for local boards of health. Today's conference call was. Tomorrow there'll be another one with DESE and DPH, so we may have some more guidelines coming out tomorrow, but we will, as we have been, keep our the community informed as soon as we know. I want to let you know that there's been no positive cases in our community that we are aware of as of 6:34 this evening. So that could change at any minute. As we all know, this is ever evolving. So we will continue to keep everybody updated as we are updated. And if you have questions, you can send them my way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank the leadership team that we've had many meetings to discuss this topic. And they provide great leadership for their faculty and staff. And also just a reminder that the preventive measures that we can take are relatively simple. Hand washing, covering our mouths when we sneeze, and we're also making sure that students are getting the same message. We're also working with our students around, many students are a little bit anxious about what's happening around them and making sure we're having conversations to address any questions that they have.
Okay, and this is also an item on our agenda, I think. A couple items, so. Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? All right, so we'll move on to new business. First is a legislative update.
So just a quick update. MASC Day on the Hill is scheduled was scheduled for May 5th. That was canceled. So we just got the email today. So as soon as it's rescheduled, I will let you know that date. I think it's always a great opportunity to speak with our legislators and share our priorities and connect with a larger organization and fellow school committee members.
Okay. So we'll wait for news on that. Okay, second item is review of family communication.
So we jumped the gun with audience sharing.
Okay,
so.
sorry.
I didn't look at the agenda again.
It's all right.
Very eager, but just in terms of, our commitment is obviously to our students and making sure our students are safe. We will update the community and faculty and staff as we receive new information. But as Mary Ellen shared, right now we're staying in close touch with DPH, the Board of Health, and CDC for recommendations and guidelines. And we're also staying in close contact with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So at this point, what the community knows is what we know, and we're taking all precautionary measures that we are required to take at this time. We are looking closely at field trips and events, and where it's non-essential or unnecessary, we are canceling events out of the safety for our students. So we understand that that's a disruption. However, I don't think in this case you can be too cautious too soon, and we'd rather err on the side of caution than wish we did something and when we look back and reflect on the situation.
Yeah. Okay. So I was saving my questions for this item on the
Yes.
agenda because I didn't want to. So, and I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but the one thing I've been wondering is I know we sent out a communication asking families to let us know if anybody has traveled to these sort of high-risk areas. What are the standards for communicating with the community about if somebody has gone into, say, self-imposed quarantine or requested quarantine or something like that?
think we have to respect everybody's confidentiality, and if it's not, or doesn't pose a risk for our students or our staff or our school community, then we would talk to the local board of health. We've been sharing that information. You know, if they find out that somebody is self-quarantined, they do let me know, and vice versa. People have contacted me about their travel, that when they traveled and what they were doing and what their care providers have suggested they do. But we would just take the steps per DPH and the Board of Health of what we would do if someone told us they traveled.
Okay.
And then we're going that way.
Good to know. Thank you.
A question about DESE. Have they given any guidelines about, you know, heaven forbid if we have to shut the schools, and about, you know, teaching remotely and that kind of thing?
So they have basically their Blizzard Bag program that started a year ago. Basically, they discussed the fact that it wasn't equitable, that not all students were able to learn in that type of environment based on whether it's developmental age or a disability. So they discontinued the Blizzard Bag and the alternative learning days, with the exception of those schools who are already in the pilot, which we were not one of those schools. So at this point in time, there is no ability for us to do distance learning or remote learning based on the DESE guidelines. They just updated time on learning and the 180-day or 185-day requirement as of March 15th, which I believe is Monday. Any time lost because of absence or cancellations, our requirement is to make up to go to the 185th day that is marked on our calendar. So that day, I believe, is June 23rd. So that will be the last day of school for public schools of Southborough, if no school is canceled this week. And if any school days are canceled after next week, it's June 23rd. So they've provided some guidance around that.
So that would be the latest that school could go.
Correct. Yep.
Is June 23rd?
June 23rd.
So we have no way of teaching remotely?
So we are planning. So I think one of our responsibilities as a school district is that if for some reason we are forced to close for extended period of times, to provide students and families with some type of structure and learning opportunities. We do have the capacity to be able to do that. We are talking about what that might look like, and how we'd support teachers and how we'd support schools and families in remote learning. So we are developing a plan, even though that's at this time it's not allowed by DESE. And we will be sharing information with schools and families about what that might look like shortly. The challenge is we're fighting we're racing against time. Right now we have to get the time and we're trying to do the preparations, but schools have had to cancel around us at a minute's notice because of the changing and evolving landscape of the COVID virus.
So you're developing a plan, but DESE hasn't approved it. Is there hope that they would approve it on a district by district basis, or?
So they've been clear right now. So I don't think their plan is to approve alternative learning days based on the guidance they gave around making up a school. However, our position is, regardless of what DESE requires or does not require, we are preparing to support families in the continued learning in the home environment if we have to close for an extended period of time.
Okay. So the plan is to make
Yeah.
something available or to prepare something.
Exactly.
So
We
that
are
it's- okay.
creating structures.
Mhm.
We had a meeting today so
Mhm.
that family could simulate a school day of some sort
Right.
for their children.
Yeah. And I would think with Canvas and everything, it's fairly possible. I mean, probably the vast majority of
Yeah.
students, if not all, have access to Canvas at this point in time.
Correct.
Is
So
that-
grades 6 through 12.
Right.
it's much easier because we have a foundation and structure.
Yeah.
Grades 3, 4, and 5, we have Google Classroom, we have some good structures. It's really the pre-K 1
Right.
that
Okay.
poses a challenge.
Okay.
But we're working through that.
So I just want to be clear, because I know parents are going to ask. So we would provide, ideally, some sort of curriculum for them to do at home.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be expected to be learned in any way? It's just...
No, so that's the other thing, and I would ask the principals to, add to the conversation that we would never introduce a new topic or new content area to students who are learning in the home environment. It would really be about maintaining skills, having students read, having students write, having students engage in, skill building and skill practice.
And so then we would come back to school eventually, hopefully, and then continue learning. We'd have to just go with what we know.
Correct.
Where we are at that point.
Yeah.
And try to make up what we can. Okay.
Yeah.
We were talking about the amount of adult support required, especially at the early levels,
Yeah.
to help students engage in learning.
Yeah.
And we don't want to burden parents. We don't want parents to feel like they are now the teacher facilitating the learning. So we're trying to come up with that balance of what they're accustomed to and what they can engage in kind of a self-directed way, but yet still not overwhelm them or have them rely on a device where they have to log in. So it's a hard balance to achieve, but we've got some great ideas, and it was a great exercise, regardless of the purpose, to come up with the solutions for our staff.
So this would be the kind of stuff that people could do whether they have internet access or not?
We
To
did
be
think, yes, we
equitable.
did, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it's really just the routines that have been established throughout the school year
Yeah.
to help students when they return. It's like we haven't missed a beat.
Yep.
We find that with school vacations, I'm sorry, or summer vacations. It's just building those
Yeah.
routines where
Yeah.
students thrive on consistency and know when they know what's expected. So that would be one of our primary goals.
And just having that ability upon return to assess what had been done
Yeah.
and making it a common experience for students. So there have been a lot of conversations and recognizing that not everybody might have the same accessibility, and how do we make it available to all
Yeah.
students?
Okay. Great.
The decision to whether or not to close schools, does that come from a state level? Does it come from, obviously, I know it's contingent on what happens in the town too, but how does that process happen?
So we would, if there was a presumptive positive case identified in our district, we would notify the Board of Health and work in collaboration with our town officials to make that decision. We would never make that decision in isolation. And we are, and that is, the team that we gather to determine what we would need to do.
So the approach is a reactive approach to if someone tests positive. There's no discussion of potentially proactively closing schools before this.
There has not been.
There's
Not
an
yet.
interesting article that's making the rounds online from doctors. There are a lot of doctors who are saying, none of us wants to hear this. None of us want proactive closing, but it seems to be evidence is coming out saying that it could be in the interest of public health to do so. But that kind of decision would come from the state level?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily. It could be a local level. Right now, the state isn't. The state, basically, the governor's declaration of a state of emergency allows for the state to provide more resources, but also help communities and towns and cities make decisions. One of the challenges too is that we're very fortunate in the community of Southborough. We are well-resourced, and most of our children go to home to families with good resources. The state is thinking about communities and cities like Worcester and Boston and Springfield, where the social structure for many students is the school, and that's where they have meals. So for them to declare schools to shut down for a period of time, it would have to be significant. But our work is really around working with the Board of Health, following DPH and CDC guidelines.
interesting, Jessica, that you should bring that up, because I read an article that basically argued the opposite today. So you can find anything you want, I guess, but they were saying that because kids generally, for whatever reason, don't seem to be catching it, I guess they don't know whether they can transmit it, even if they don't, if they're not presenting symptoms. Or something like, if they cancel school, okay, well, what are the kids going to be doing? They're playing with other kids. So.
Hanging around with their grandparents.
Right,
Yeah.
and that is the problem, because
Yeah.
this is a novel virus, we don't know, so you can find doctors saying, saying either side. I've read quite a
Right.
few articles saying exactly the opposite, that kids are thought to be carriers, and then they bring it home
Yeah.
to their parents. I mean, even those of us who are, not in our 70s, but might still be more susceptible because of underlying conditions, like that's concerning. So, I mean, we don't know.
So I think,
it's-
and that's exactly it. So we're, I think also we provide some structure for, for families, and what will happen is a cascading effect if other school districts decide to close for a period of time. Our teaching faculty live, across Central Mass and Middlesex and in the Boston area. So, it's going to be interesting to see. More likely is that if we can't maintain a staffing level where our students are safe, we might have to close. But I also think that the conversations that we've been engaged in really center around why you would close is to slow the progression, but also to provide the healthcare system's time to respond to those who really need acute care. And and I think that was learned in the 1918 flu pandemic, that they made decisive, quick actions to mitigate and slow things down. So there's no guidelines at this time to have us close for an extended period of time, but we are monitoring on a daily basis.
How about for parents who are pulling their kids out of school? Because I have quite a few friends who've actually pulled their kids from school. Is there a plan for how to negotiate that?
Yeah, I think that we are seeing on a daily basis increase of families who are choosing to keep their students home, their children home, and we will work very closely with those families to make sure the continuity of learning takes place. So, this is not a unique. This is a unique situation. This is not typical, and we are doing whatever we can to support families and students in their learning in this particular environment.
I know we're generally an affluent town, but is there talk about what we would do about our children who depend on us for food, so they're not food insecure?
Yeah, so we are identifying students and families who might need additional assistance and coming up with plans. So that is the proactive work we're doing, identifying students who might be medically at risk, faculty and staff who might be medically at risk, making sure we're able to respond in a timely manner to the needs.
Great.
Getting back to DESE, so they just gave up on the blizzard bag idea. So there's no, if you're a district that does have the means to make something like that work, you're just out of
Yeah,
luck.
so the alternative learning is not something they're pursuing, and I think their change in the 185-day policy is another. Basically, they're saying if you cancel school, you cancel school, and that to try to make up those days through distance learning is not fair and equitable. So it's not an option for
I
us
mean,
right
blizzard
now.
bag was originally for snow days.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're still going to have snow days, maybe not this year, but.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
I think this whole, hopefully one of the positive outcomes of this will be, we do have the means to provide, learning and remote access. And how do we mitigate some of these other factors of making it equitable for all students? So I think we'll see some additional conversation once we hopefully get through this and look back on the situation.
So last weekend, I think, was the weekend where there was the deep cleaning
Mhm.
of everything. Can you just describe the plan going forward of sort of maintaining that?
Yeah, so we are in conversations around continuing that into the future. We haven't made a decision around whether we'll deep clean again this weekend. quite honestly, we just haven't sat at the table. We haven't had the time to sit at the table to say, okay, what's our next logical step? Really, this week has been focusing on all of this, the school events and making sure those are canceled across our 10 schools. We are beginning to have conversations around what proactive measures we can take to deep clean our schools. And many schools have had to close to deep clean during the week because they didn't take the measure during the weekend. So our position will be, if we need to, we will. And our custodial staff has been very supportive.
Thank you.
But we haven't made that decision for this weekend yet.
So is it our custodial staff who is doing that deep cleaning? And how does this affect us budget-wise?
So it does have, obviously when we ask custodial staff to work, it's at a significant cost. However, it's not a prohibitive cost. It's a good value and an important step that we can take. So it will have an impact, but not a significant impact on the overall budget.
Is there evidence that it actually works to do that? Because then you have kids who come in, like if they are sick, 2 minutes after you've deep cleaned, they're like touching everything.
Exactly. The reality is it gives us a clean, it gives us a, pun intended, clean slate. But you're right, the minute you have 350 students enter the building, it's no longer a clean slate. And the custodial staff have done a great job of being more diligent around cleaning high contact surfaces than we have in the past.
Do teachers, I know wipes and antibacterial gel are hard to find right now. Do teachers have what they need to be wiping down classrooms?
So Becky, I don't know if you want to speak to that?
Sure. So each classroom at the beginning of the year is equipped with 2 to 3 spray bottles depending on the school. One is for one that's safe for student use. It's plain soap and water mixture. And then there's also an antibacterial mixture. And so we actually purchase in advance a number of the supplies. When we saw this ramping up, our facility managers were very proactive and ordered supplies. And we actually purchased one of the spray guns, which is like a sanitizer, which can get into some of the cracks and crevices and deep clean that maybe you can't get with a towel or with a wipe. So they've been employing all of those methods. So teachers have those spray bottles in the classrooms, and they have also been allowed to use Clorox wipes, and we actually purchased some of those Clorox wipes as well. Again, before the shelves were, made bare, because we can't get, we've tried to reach out to some of Mary Ellen's suppliers as well, and they're limiting supplies right now. So we're trying to be proactive and get as much as we can while we still can.
Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks for all the info.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for all your work on this.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a crazy situation. So
Yeah.
appreciate it. All right. Okay, next we have Student Opportunity Act Plan.
So just a quick update. So as part of the Student Opportunity Act law, part of the law states that districts need to submit a Student Opportunity Act plan to share how it's going to spend its additional funding. So we received an additional $36,750 based on the Student Opportunity Act, which is a very small amount of money. We are required to submit the plan no matter if you received $1 or $50 million. So our plan really around this additional money was to look at what did we already identify in the budget as a priority to move forward with. So we identified Fort and Gillingham training, so it's a specialized reading program, which we already had in the budget, so that is going to help with that training. And then classroom specialist teachers is really someone who's trained in Fort and Gillingham who can provide some reading services to students. So that is our plan of how we'll spend the money. And the plan does require a vote of the school committee.
Mhm.
And it also requires community input and feedback. So the plan was details and how to move forward with that were just released by DESE, which did not give us a tremendous amount of time to get feedback and input. So we did look at the survey from the strategic planning process that we're engaged in now, and some of the focus groups we held, and this is aligned with the feedback that we received.
Mhm.
And also what we're hearing from NSPAC is a high priority for them as well.
Okay. All right. So is this something that we should vote on tonight, or is this for another?
We need to submit it by April 1st.
Okay.
So we would need a vote this evening.
Mhm.
So I could
Just accepting the funds?
So it's accepting the plan as is, and we will continue to seek community input in terms of whether, my plan is to meet with NSPAC to share our thinking around how to spend the money.
Yeah.
I think, Marie, you can speak to the fact that this has been a priority for them, and would be shocked if they thought we should spend money.
I'm actually familiar with it as a priority, having been the liaison for
Yeah.
a little while, so, yeah. Okay. All right. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll give it a shot. I'll move that we approve the student opportunity plan for the school years 2021 through 2023 as described in the packet.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Next, welcome Trottier Middle School Assistant Principal Stacy Mahoney. Hi.
So it seems like a long journey sitting at this table. So we finally have all of the moving parts and people and their new positions. So Keith Lavoie is now in his new office as the Director of Operations, and Gary has assumed the role of principal, and I'll let Gary introduce our newest member to the leadership team.
I'd be happy to, Greg. Thanks. So I think I shared before February break, a mid-year transition is could be nerve-wracking. But when we posted this job, I did not know what to expect, and I was pleased to find that, we had almost 70 applicants for the position, and I think that's a testament to the community. And Kathleen and Jessica were also on the screening committee as well. And I can, attest that there are a lot of talented educators out there, and it was great to see, and we found one. And for us, I think the way Stacy presented on paper, her first interview, her references, her second interview was just very consistent, and we were very pleased with that. She brings with her some great experience. She has a blend of the classroom experience. She was a world language teacher, and then she transitioned into guidance in Watertown Middle School, and that experience was very compelling for the committee. Overall, we didn't want to just find someone who was going to fit in with the Trottier community, but really extend our capacity and bring a new, fresh perspective. So I think Stacy brings a lot of attributes, skills, and experiences that are going to really enhance our educational experience for our students. February 24th is her first day. I try to convince her that, typically when you start an administration is not under a state of emergency. But before that came in, it was a middle school in February. We were, and like no one cared. It was her first day. It was great. I think it felt very familiar to Stacy, and she hit the ground running, and really her transition thus far has been seamless. So we're very proud to welcome Stacy Mahoney to Trottier Middle School.
Okay, well, welcome. Great. How's it going so far?
It's going really well. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that. It's, as Gary said, really kind of hit the ground running, which has presented a lot of really great opportunity for me to get to know the Trottier community, which is just a really great community to be in. It really feels like a family, and that's how people describe it. And so you walk into this building and people are kind and people care about one another, and it's really just great to be a part of that. So I'm so very thankful to be here. And like Gary said, there's been a lot happening, so it's a very typical middle school, and coming from that middle school experience, I'm able to, just kind of fit right
Jumping right in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, great to have you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Great. Okay, next is Assistant Superintendent Search Committee member.
So I believe that Roger Challen is interested in serving as the liaison for the school committee on assistant search committee. And there has been a slight location change in terms of where the committee meetings will be held. And the meetings were going to be held at the central office, but we actually shifted to the high school library. One of
The
annex
gym,
rooms.
get shouted, sit 6 feet away
So
from
we
each
have
other.
we have a well-ventilated
Right.
room where people can have proper spacing. So,
Yeah.
And the first meeting to launch that work starts tomorrow. So.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Sounds great.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes, thank you to Roger. Okay, next is electronic warrants.
So very timely, talking about work that we can do remotely. So we are moving forward with electronic warrants. I think I shared with you earlier that legal counsel did weigh in and said that it's a perfectly acceptable means to sign warrants. So we are engaging in licenses with DocuSign, and we'll have directions and procedures and protocols around signing warrants electronically. And I think I know all of you are probably very excited about that, but we're equally as excited.
I'm sure.
So more information to follow, and we're going to try to move quickly, just given the current state. So.
Sure. Are there, I have a question actually, are there multiple, in addition to the benefits of not having to travel in to physically sign things, are there any workflow benefits from the office side or not really? Does it like consolidate things or is it?
I would say it's a huge elimination of paper. So we're looking to actually move the finance office to a paperless system. If you walk in, you'd be amazed at how many trees have been killed through the years. So yes, everyone is excited to move forward with this.
And I think equally a benefit is a lot of foot travel happens from
Yeah.
Becky's office to my office. So this actually is going to make it much easier to look at the warrants and streamline the workflow. So we are looking forward to it.
Well, that's good.
So.
Okay. Excellent.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, so now we move on to old business. We have MSBA Accelerated Repair Project update.
So we have the Finn boiler project that is on target in terms of the process. The next key date really is town meeting to get the town's vote to approve the project. And I believe that they are going out to bid shortly.
It's out to bid.
Out to bid.
Sub-bids were due today, and the final bid for the general contractors or the larger groups would be next Wednesday.
Okay.
So exciting.
Yeah, very. Okay, then we have superintendent's report to the committee.
So in your packet are the enrollments as of February 24th, 2020, and ask Mr. Ryan to give an update on kindergarten enrollment and projections.
Sure. As of this morning, we have about 123 incoming kindergarten families, or we should say families. Some are still in process in terms of where they stand with registration. We sent out 108 letters based on the census, and we did have quite a few walk-ins, and the phone is still ringing with inquiries about next year in the process. So it's a very fluid model, as you know, and based on the numbers we had last year, we sent out 118 packets. Those are actual physical packets. Now we're doing more online registration or asking parents to come in with the material. We'll print it for them. 118, and we're up to 142 in kindergarten now. So there was quite a jump over the end of the school year.
123 at this point in the year seems on the higher end of class size or no?
It's actually, well, we were at 118, we planned for 118.
Yeah.
And then we did have the move-in bringing us up to 142. So we really don't know. A lot of those numbers were towards the end of the school year and over the summer. But we do have a structure in place that allows us to add students as they enroll and come in.
So right now, we're at 142 students. We're at the ceiling of our class size policy for kindergarten. So we're watching it closely and thinking about what if scenarios in terms of if we do go beyond the class size policy, what we do in terms of staffing. So also in your packet is the monthly fund expenditure report. I'll let Becky speak to that.
So as you can see, there were no significant variances from the previous month. As of February 29th, we had $407,120,000 remaining on the bottom line, or 1.96%. We met this afternoon with the principals and with district-wide administrators to review our spending for the remaining months in the fiscal year, and reviewed some of the open purchase orders that are out there at the school level and also at the district level. Compared to last year, we had $298,000 remaining on the bottom line, so we have a little bit more, but we still have some projects that are ongoing as well, so we do expect to see that coming down.
Great. Vote.
I'll move that we vote to approve the Southborough Public School District fiscal 2020 budget, monthly general fund expenditure report as of February 29th, 2020 until audited.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right, great.
So next in your packet is the FY21 budget calendar. The next critical date is town meeting, which is March 28th. That is still on as of today.
In the discussion, so I know they were having discussions
I
this
believe they
week
had
about
some
it.
discussion
Yeah.
at last night's select
Yeah.
meeting, but no decisions were made. So I think they're monitoring the situation. We'll make decisions
See
as
where we are at the
we get
time.
more information.
Okay.
So also in your packet is the school committee approved FY 2021 budget, which was voted on January 8th, 2020.
Okay.
And that is the superintendent's report.
Okay, then educational policy, none at this time. Then we have policy development and distribution.
So we have two new policies for first read, or two policies for first read, the disposition of executive session minutes, B210. And as you can see, the addition to that was having a mechanism where executive session minutes are reviewed, are brought forth to the committee and reviewed annually. There are certain cases where executive session minutes might be held for more than a year. So this is just a good check and balance in terms of making sure that we review the open executive session minutes on an annual basis. The next policy, and then be happy to answer any questions about that policy.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has any comments about, so the two that we're really, well, the three we're really discussing tonight, if anybody has any comments, or that one. Next is conflict of interest, and then we have the second read of the bullying policy. So, and conflict of interest was updated quite a bit.
So so what you see in red is from legal counsel's recommendations, and it basically aligns the required ethics trainings that faculty and staff are required to complete on a every other year basis. And then the bullying prevention and intervention policy. So this is a policy that we're trying to maintain consistency throughout the three districts. I believe this has been to Northborough and the region. And this policy reflects all the changes that all of the committees have recommended. And I believe the last recommendation was one that the Southborough committee made around some cleaning up of language and also removing redundancy.
Okay. Anyone have any comments on any of those three policies? Good. We could vote on bullying, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we could vote on the bullying policy. If anyone wants to make a motion. Paul?
I move that we vote to approve policy A150, bullying prevention and intervention.
I'll second it. Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Great.
And then we have a couple policies, a recommendation to rescind. We have the human immunodeficiency virus, attendance policy A120, and policy G100. And I'll let Mary Ellen speak to rescinding those.
Rescinding the HIV and AIDS policy. It's very outdated, and it's covered under the Disability Act and that policy that we have already.
Right. We can see these were adopted in 1985 and 1990, so. Okay. So any discussion on those or a motion to rescind?
So there's two of them, right?
Yep.
I'll move that we vote to rescind policy A120 as well as policy G100, both having to do with HIV.
Second? Okay. Discussion? All in favor? All right. Thank you. And we just have distribution of pregnant students policy and sexual harassment in the school, which were previously discussed. So, okay, that brings us to personnel items, distribution of personnel report.
So we have the personnel report. We do. Stacy is listed on that. So welcome, Stacy. We also have Gail and Ham, who took a position that opened up unexpectedly. An employee left for family reasons. He served in this role last year and went back to his role in Northborough, applied for this position, and began his work again in the district. And the nice thing is that no one is on a leave of absence, so this is his position for the foreseeable future, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then we have Matthew Bertnazzi, who is occupational therapist at Finn School, and he is actually taken a position in Northborough Public Schools as a teacher. So he's still within our educational community.
Okay. Great, thank you. That brings us to action on minutes. So we have the minutes of the open meeting on February 12th, and then the executive session on February 12th.
Executive session,
We're going
Approving
to approve and hold.
We can.
Oh, can we?
So we can vote to approve and release.
Oh, really?
We did
Okay.
review those, and that didn't place.
Oh, great.
All right, I'll move that we vote to approve the minutes of the open meeting of February 12th, 2020, and approve and release minutes from the executive session of February 12th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of bills and payrolls. Speaking of signatures, do that after. Agenda items for next month.
So we have near school improvement plan.
Mhm.
So we'll have some
Great.
student guests.
We will have student guests.
Oh,
Good.
We're putting a show on.
Great.
Town meeting recap, so
Yeah.
that will be an agenda item.
Okay.
And a vote to ratify the agreement between the Southborough School Committee and the Southborough Teachers Association. And also one last agenda item, which is our world language update. I believe we talked about that
Okay.
the last meeting.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Put a coronavirus update on there.
Probably
Probably.
should.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Okay, so that brings us to our second round of audience sharing. If anybody has anything they'd like to share.
I actually have a question. Do we know what we do if there's a ban on meetings? What we would do as a body to meet virtually?
So that is a question that people are asking. And I think we're waiting for some direction from the governor and his executive order, or executive order, state of emergency. So we don't have a clear direction on that yet. But we have asked that question and hope to get an answer soon.
There would have to be some specific direction though, right? Because my understanding is that you can participate remotely in meetings, but votes don't count. If you have that in place in your town, you can do
There has to
remote
be
or
a
there's-
quorum present physically.
physically, so.
Right, which if we had a ban on meetings, we wouldn't be able to do.
Right,
So
so
we'd have to
there would
some
have to be
new
some additional guidance.
Yeah.
So if social distancing becomes mandatory, then we would have to think about what essential business we would need to conduct as a committee and see what parameters we could work with.
Okay,
But let's hope we don't.
Hopefully that won't be necessary.
okay, anything else? All right, so we have on here, we're going to move into executive session. Do you have a motion for that?
I'll move that we move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding this matter in open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the committee with no intent to return to open meeting.
Okay. Second?
Roll call.
Second.
And roll call vote, so,
Yes.
yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.